by the bridge. So, you know, that's also, if the shirt is a good conversation starter, that's another thing, because I think that that's really a forward-looking symbol of some of the great things here and the legacy that we have, but also the challenges that we must meet, and we must do it together. So that's my bridge. The water as well, yes, thank you. The water as well, which we've got to protect and make sure everyone's got clean drinking water. A big piece of the campaign that we're doing. So I'm really lucky. I've got one of my former colleagues, Vince Gregory. He's still in the Senate. Senator Gregory is here. And Mary Waters, with whom I served in the state house. We went to a senior center earlier today, and we were talking to them, and one of the women said, "Well, I'll vote for you," and she pointed at Mary. And Mary said, "No, Gretchen." So that's kind of funny. And of course, Morris Hood, who was up here doing his captain. So Kim should be here in a minute, but since I'm up here, I mean, and we don't want to just hold you here all night. Maybe I'll give you a little bit of a campaign update. You've met the team. You now know where this field office is, and I hope that you will come. We've got it staffed, and a delightful woman named Colette, who's a good friend of mine, is here a lot of the time and would love to see you show up and put people to work here. But just a couple updates on what's happening on the campaign. So I know that Dana mentioned, and Dana's doing a phenomenal job. She had to schedule this whole, where's she? Oh, right there. I think she works 25 hours a day. I don't know how she does it. But you know, now that we're 45 days out, we're going to see a lot of polling happening. We're going to see a lot more activity. We've been up on television for 2 weeks now with our Build a Better Michigan ad. The campaign ad from the candidate committee is starting on Tuesday, and we'll be running through the election as well. So between that and the Americans for Prosperity, which is the Koch brothers, everyone in the state's going to know my name. Name ID's going to go from small to universal real fast. And I think that, you know, the reason that they're spending against us already is because they know going into the fall that we are the strongest campaign, and that they see the same thing that we see as we're on the doors, as I'm traveling the state, and I've been into all 83 counties, and now I'm focused heavily here in southeast Michigan, where I spend the vast majority of my time, and yours as well. They know what's looming for them in the fall, and they are seeing it. They're scared, and they better be, because we are coming. And but it was kind of fun doing all that traveling, despite the fact that I had to replace 2 windshields and a tire in the process, which is why I keep talking about the damn roads. And if people don't like the damn roads, this time I said the dams and roads. But, you know, as I've gotten across our state, I'm so encouraged by what I see. We have turnouts that are 3-4 times bigger than we expect everywhere we go. Even in like Lake County, Michigan, which is the northwestern part of the Lower Peninsula, where a lot of Democrats don't even show up. We're showing up, and people are turning out. And so that's why AFP is in here and spending the kind of money that they are. And you know, we take our knocks, but we take it as a badge of honor too. It's going to be a wild ride from now through the primary, and then the 90 days beyond that. We focus on the primary first, of course, and take nothing for granted. Yes, what were you?
Okay, I have a question, and I truly don't know the answer, but we see in Washington, pardon my expression, an idiot doing things by executive order. Doing things by executive order. Does the governor of Michigan have a similar ability to reverse some of the things that the president administration is doing, or does it have to go through the legislature?
Well, so, you know, there's national, you know, there's the federal law and there's state law. Now, governors have stood up to Donald Trump. A number of Democratic governors have taken some pretty bold positions to put pressure on the White House or to undermine what we consider unconstitutional and illegal acts. For instance, Governor Cuomo in New York is suing the federal government on behalf of the children that have been separated from their parents. And we should be too. We should be too. We have 58 children have been separated and brought to Michigan, and they're on the west side of the state. Also, a number of governors have withdrawn their National Guard troops from the border, and we should be doing the same. So, a governor's power does not supersede a president, but there are things that a governor can do with the bully pulpit and with the resources in this state.
But what about the state legislature? Can you reverse things that Snyder and company have done in the state by executive order?
We can do some things by executive order, but that's also, you're putting a really, a fine point on something that I'm very, thoughtful about, that we've got to make sure we pull every Democrat across the finish line that we can. Because, I need a legislature to work with.
Right.
I can't, I often hear people who are running say, on day one, I'm gonna undo right to work. We can't do that. I'm not going to tell people I can do something that I can't, but I am ready to use every lever of power in that executive office to undo right to work. But I need more Democrats in the legislature so we can have a better shot at actually getting that bill to my desk so I can sign that. Yeah.
So, Christian, do you think it's possible that Michigan will be able to implement a tax return policy for anyone running for president? So like some states, like Rhode Island just did it, and a couple of others have done it as well. They voted for it.
For him to be qualified on the ballot in Michigan, then they would have to turn over their taxes. Certainly possible. More likely if I got more Democrats in the legislature. Again, to the point, one of the things that I know, having served in the legislature, is the legislature, they don't work for the governor. I've got to forge relationships, and the more people we can pull into office, the stronger our hand in order, and our ability to deliver on a lot of these things. Now, I'll use every ounce of power in the executive office through setting the budget, through appointing people, to the bench or to the cabinet, using the bully pulpit. But in order to make the legislative changes by statute that we need to, I need the legislature, or at least people that I can work with in the legislature. And so, as I get across Michigan, I know we've got a lot of great candidates for the House and for the Senate. We could make huge strides. We might take back one or both chambers, very possibly. But let's be. We can't stop after the governor's race.
That's right.
I need an attorney general who's going to have my back. I need a secretary of state who's going to level barriers to voting. And I know she will, absolutely. If anyone can do it, Jocelyn. But these are all pieces to the long term here. We can't just look at this election or think about the next presidential. We have a census coming up.
Yeah.
And right after the census, we vote redistricting. And hopefully we will pass voters, not politicians, this year, and we will have a, bipartisan group drawing lines. But there are high stakes because what happens for the next decade will be impacted by what happens in this election cycle. Yeah.
I have a question. Today in the data, dear Mr. Trump said he was so proud that he couldn't repeal Obamacare, but he did gut it. He was really proud of that. One of your greatest accomplishments, I feel, is that you negotiated with Snyder to be able to expand health care for Michiganders. And I'd like to know, in the world of this situation, what we're dealing with, how are you going to protect that and grow it if you're governor?
So
when you're governor.
Well, it's every day that goes by, it's getting harder because, as Senator Hood just mentioned, the legislature just passed the work requirements. The governor signed it into law yesterday. They don't even know how many people are going to lose health care because of this, because they haven't taken their time to ask the question, much less to figure out who it's going to hurt and to what extent. These work requirements are not about getting people to work. It's about getting people to work that'll level the barriers that stand in people's way, like child care or transportation. They didn't do any of that. They just took health care away from
There
them.
are a lot of people who do work and still need that help.
Absolutely. I've met so many people who've seen a doctor for the first time because of Medicaid expansion. And now that's all in jeopardy based on the attacks here, but also based on what may be coming out of Washington, D.C. Now, I think we're going to have a really big election year across the country. I am really reticent to use the phrase blue wave because I don't want people to think we're just going to ride it in. you know, we are the wave. We fuel that wave. The phone calls we make, the doors we knock, the events, you know, that we create, that's where that wave is. But, you know, to expand the work that we did on Medicaid, number one is to stop the bleeding by getting new leaders in Lansing. Then, you know, it's on us to do it. I don't want to wait for Washington DC and hope that they fix it. We have 600,000 people. I've helped get 680 covered. We got 600 more to cover, and that's a part of the healthcare plan that I'm running on, is to get everyone covered right here in the state. Not Washington DC. Yeah.
So, what are we gonna do about prevailing wage? What can we do? That's a big deal.
So, you know, all of the conversation from the business community, from Governor Snyder is, we need more people in the trades, right? Dan Gilbert's hiring everyone around. Anyone else who's in construction can't find people to do the job. You know, if you're looking for a plumber or an electrician in any community, we know that there aren't enough people in the trade. And so they talk about getting more people in the trades, and then what do? They take away your ability to make a living doing it through prevailing wage. I have always been a supporter of prevailing wage. I can, as governor, unilaterally insist on a prevailing wage in state contracts.
Yeah.
But what we need to do ultimately is to change the law, and that's back to this pulling more Democrats into office, so that it applies to all. You know, it applies beyond just who's contracted
Well,
with
they're
the
gonna
state.
come up from the south and they're gonna take our work. I mean, that's what's gonna happen.
Well, and one of the great things, I was talking to someone who is, you know, a pipe fitter here in Detroit, trained pipe fitter. He can go anywhere in the country because they know he is trained better than anyone else, and that we're not valuing the work that he does, and he can make a better living anywhere else in our country. And they know his training is the finest around. So this is, you know, reinstituting prevailing wage in Michigan is something we must do in order to make the trades a path that more people want to go into. We all need people in the trades in the state. We've done ourselves a huge disservice by just talking about 4-year degrees as the only way, you know, the only honorable way to make a living in this state. And then we cut off people's ability to afford it. And so we've got too few people with 4-year degrees, 2-year degrees, or in the trades. That's why my 2-year talent investment to making a community college degree available for everyone debt-free. We're using that to bringing down the cost of a 4-year degree. And building through paths, even through high school, this certification toward the trades really opens up paths for everybody. Yeah. Okay, couple more questions? Okay. All right. Is Kim coming, or do we know?
Yeah, Kim's coming.
Okay, is that all right? Okay. She's got 3 kids. She's, you know, phenomenal. So we're cutting her some slack, but I'm glad I jumped in and got it started. Okay. All right, couple more questions. Yes, pastor. Yes, daughter.
I just had a question about like car insurance, right? We have like,
Yeah, absolutely. So car insurance rates. You're obviously not the first person who's raised that. You will not be the last until we fix this. So Michigan, we got the highest car insurance rates in the country. Detroiters have the worst of the pain, you know, out of anyone in the state. But everyone's feeling some pain, but Detroiters feel it the worst. For a long time, for too long, insurance industry has written the rules. And I am absolutely committed to signing a bill in the first 6 months of next year to bring down those rates. Now, there are certain things that need to be a part of that. No fault was created so that if you were tragically injured in an auto accident, you would have coverage to protect you for the rest of your life. I think that's important. I also think it's important that we bring down litigation costs. Those are the 2 goals of no fault, and I think those are important. What I do know, we can do a heck of a lot better on cost containment, on further reducing litigation, to have real transparency in the catastrophic claims fund. Right now, the insurance industry says you've got to pay more because we need to build up money in the catastrophic claims fund to pay for people that are injured. But you're not allowed to know how much money is in the catastrophic claims fund. That's the rub. Well, people say that it's between 20 and $40 billion is what the experts think it's at, but no one knows because we have no ability to question. You have to buy insurance under threat of criminal prosecution, but you're not allowed to know how much money they put away for people that are injured. That's wrong. So I'm gonna sue to get transparency.
Yeah.
That's it. And then finally, right now, they have the ability to determine rates based on some non-driving factors, like your credit rating, your marital status. What does your marital status have to do with your driving? Unless you're driving to get away from someone, they use so I mean, these non-driving factors are, if the insurance industry continues to have the ability to arbitrarily decide your rates, we can do everything else right, but there's no guarantee that rates will come down if they retain the ability to discriminate. So that's got to be a part of the solution too. If you're over 65,
Yeah.
marital status, your educational level, your credit rating, financial zone, yeah.
I know
And if
that
you're a woman, you get more.
they charge, studies have shown that across the state that if you are a female, you get charged, your rates are higher than men.
I'm not surprised.
It's another pink tax, right? All right. There was someone else, oh yeah, no.
Obviously, we have a border right next door to Canada. That's very important for our state. I know governors have some competencies with regards to international trade, and as it seems increasingly likely that, possible at least, that Trump might pull out of NAFTA, what would you do as governor to ensure that a sum of our important trade integrated supply chains continue with our
Well, somehow 45 is determined to make Justin Trudeau an enemy. Our longtime allies, right, in Canada. We're friends with Russia, and we know what happened. American workers can compete with anyone on the planet. Michigan workers are the finest. But we need to have a level playing field. There's no question. When the rules are rigged, you can be the best of the best, and you're going to lose. And that's part of the problem that we have here in Michigan, is that we don't have real enforcement of international law, of trade law. That's why this craziness out of the White House has got some people in labor divided. The steel workers are pleased with some of the tariff talk. Auto workers are not, because the cost of an automobile is going to go up. This ugly back and forth with Canada now is so much of our Michigan economy depends on trade with Canada. I had the numbers, I screenshotted it because I wanted to imprint it, but I haven't memorized it yet. But it's like 80% of our international trade that we all benefit from is with Canada. So it's massive for our state, and this arbitrary, undisciplined tweet rhetoric threatens so much of our economy here in Michigan. So what can a governor do? Well, I think that a governor can build caucuses. A governor can get the strength of all of the Great Lakes state, for instance. If we're talking about the quality of our water, every state that surrounds or abuts or draws from the Great Lakes should be a part of the Great Lakes Caucus that brings to bear enormous pressure on And I was saying, then I'll also reach out to Justin Trudeau, because I'm just looking for an excuse to talk to him.
Great Lakes, just recently, we learned that Trump wants to develop in such ways the economics of the Great Lakes. And when he's talking about that, it scares the hell out of me, because he's going to wreck and exploit, as we're getting exploited by Nestle. And what would you as a governor be able to do when the president is going to be repealing laws and that from that level? How do we
So, well, I'm afraid too. He's a villager.
Yes,
And if he could figure out how to make money on it personally, he would do it. Well, okay, let's talk short term. Short term, I believe that this kind of Great Lakes Caucus that I'm talking about could be extremely powerful. And we could cobble together the funding if we needed to support the Great Lakes oversight that Trump keeps pulling the money out of. But number two, we're gonna rebuild the blue wall right through Michigan and get rid of him in 2 years.
What about Nestle?
Okay. I don't wanna leave before Kim comes though. Okay, yes.
I have a question, not a popular question, about line 5. So I'm divided on line 5. I know that it brings, jobs and it keeps those tankers off 75 when I drive up north with my family. Doug Stockwell from the operators wrote a great article which tries to give free press about why we need line 5 and how important it is to keep it strong. Fix it and repair it, or build a tunnel around it, or whatever we're gonna do with it. And everyone is so dead set on shutting it down, and I understand why. And I understand that you think, or you are gonna shut it down or however, but what are we gonna do when we shut it down? What are we gonna do? What's the plan?
So we have to have a long-term plan for energy for the Upper Peninsula.
Right.
You first pay astronomical costs for energy. Line 5 supplies some of it, not all of it. And there are alternatives. I'm mindful of the need to make sure that users don't get gouged on their energy prices and that they can heat their homes in the winter. This is darn cold. And I understand the strength of the feeling that my friends and the operating engineers have around this debate, because they feel, and I get it, that it's an attack on their work. That's all undermining the strength of pipelines that they built. You know, everything is, you go to a grocery store, it is created by plumbers and pipe fitters, right? Or you get your goods out of the freezer. It's all lines, it's every HVAC system. I mean, this is important work, and this is about the trades, and this is about integrity. And they feel that it's an insult to the work that they do. And that's not what this is all about. Not for me, I can tell you that. And I'm always very mindful about not saying pipelines are inherently bad.
Right.
All right? But oil spill in the Great Lakes would devastate our economy, would devastate our drinking water, would devastate our agriculture economy. I mean, tourism, it would devastate the best natural resource that we have as a state. And so I want that pipeline out of the water. Now, I know that the Republicans want to talk about the possibility of building a tunnel. A tunnel would take at the minimum 7 years, and we cannot run the risk of another anchor strike in the next 7 years waiting for a tunnel to be constructed. And that's why I say we have to move forward on getting it out of the Great Lakes and simultaneously working on how we get energy to the UP. But always being respectful of not just trashing, the work that these skilled laborers do.
Well, right, and obviously moving it or whatever, putting it above, I don't know how that works. We'll give them more work, but I just feel like what is our plan? Everybody wants to, but what are we gonna do? Like, we're just gonna shut it down? Like, what happens now?
Well, you can truck a couple of trucks over the Mackinac Bridge would, a day would give the same supply. Coming in from Wisconsin is a possibility. The state making it a priority, and I think there's so many people who want that threat out of the Great Lakes that they would contribute to developing an alternative for neighbors. So that's a part of the issue, but we can't wait to have that conversation until something else is built or it has to be started. Every minute that we don't start, and we're just making money, and so delaying and keeping it in there as long as possible is in their best interest, not in the developers. Yeah.
Line 5 is what, 50 or 60 years old?
It was, I think it's like 57 years old now, it might be a little bit,
Yeah, so
65 years old.
The components that were used when it was built were very good, but because it's so old, new components and a new line should be.
Yeah.
What do you have?
What about Nestle?
What about Nestle? So, in the same week that Governor Snyder cut off bottled water locally, they signed off on Nestle pulling more water out of the ground to sell it to other people around the world. So we have a company that's making money off of our groundwater, and we have a community that still can't, with confidence, drink and bathe their kids with water coming out of their tap. I'm gonna create a department of the Great Lakes and freshwater, so that we've got a department that is focused on eliminating threats to our water and ensuring that everyone has clean, affordable drinking water across our state. Sadly, there's over 70 communities with higher lead levels in their water right now than Flint has. And I'm not saying that means that Flint's been fixed. It has not. And that's got to be priority number one. But we have got a real crisis on our hands. And that's why my infrastructure plan focuses as much on fixing the dams and roads, or the dam roads, as it does replacing all the lead pipes for our drinking water underneath the ground. Those are critical infrastructure pieces as well that are part of the infrastructure plan that I'm running on, that I'm determined to make a reality. All right, yes.
The educational system here in the city of Detroit, what's your plan?
So, education in the city of Detroit, education across the state of Michigan. You know, this was the place, we had the best education system around for Michigan public schools. And DPS was the best of the best schools, right? This was the state people used to come to for a good job and a great education for their kids. And right now, we are failing generations of kids in Michigan. And we're failing because the DeVos family has co-opted the whole conversation around education and made it a partisan issue. And now the funding of schools is, if you want funding, you're a Democrat, and if you're against it, you're a Republican. And that's not how it is in other states. You know, that's the one budget that Republicans and Democrats find their common ground on, is the education budget in other states, and then out in Michigan. And we have to change that, because our kids are not Democrats or Republicans, they're kids. They need good schools, they deserve good schools. We all have a stake in fixing our education system. Now, part of it is funding. Pulling money out of the school aid fund and putting it into the general fund to shore holes started under a governor in our party. And it was wrong at the time, and the Republicans have used that as an excuse to just make it, you know, a huge drain on our schools. Right now, about $750 million is taken annually out of our education system and put into our general fund. Think about what we could do with $750 million. We could have universal early childhood, so every incoming kindergartner is ready to learn. We could have triple the number of literacy coaches and make sure everyone's reading by the end of 3rd grade, instead of being held back and penalized for not reading. Or instead of having an attorney general who goes to court and says there's not a constitutional right to literacy in Michigan. We could be the most literate state in the nation. So these, I think, are the fundamentals, and I'm sorry to say that Detroit is one example of many, many examples where our kids are not getting the education they need. And I know that the superintendent here in DPS is doing some great things. I'm very hopeful. I think a lot of things I hear sound really good, but we didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to fix it overnight. But I think some of the work that they're doing is really encouraging, especially with regard to giving parents the support they need to better their education as well. That's an important part that we can't legislate, we can't mandate, but we can create an environment that contributes to that being a possibility. Yeah.
Did you pledge not to raise a fund though, as a governor?
Yeah, I'm going to draw a line, and I'm not going to let anyone take money out of the school.
You're talking about legislation also that was really needed to stop that.
Well, ultimately, yeah, I introduced a constitutional amendment to protect the school aid from rates on it. I couldn't get it done. As governor, I can unilaterally tell you, yeah, I want to make sure there's not a dime coming out of the school aid fund to backfill the general fund. But we ultimately, I would like legislation so that a future governor can't play those games either. It was always assumed to be the law that the school aid fund was, you could not take dollars, it was dedicated. And then when it started under Governor Granholm, it was supposed to be a small, one-time thing. It's now created the rule and it's been expanded amount.
Okay, keep coming back,